Hello. Oh, Eilina, what a good idea. What is everyone's sun, moon, and rising sign? Don't you just love the posts? If you've ever been part of like a Facebook astrology group, I was back in the day when I was on Facebook. And so often I would scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll, trying to find like my big three twin. And finally I manifested a couple, but it took me a while to find a big three twin. So yeah, sun, moon, and rising sign. Put it in the comments whether you're here live or catching the replay. Hello everyone. I love how Tara Brock says at the beginning of her videos, it's good to be with you, because it really is. Like this space, this live stream space has sort of become like the highlight of my week, I think. Yeah, so that's good. I love that. You guys help with that. You help co-create this energetic space. What goes on in the chat, what gets put in the comments, like from people watching the replay, it just warms my heart that there are literally so many of us out there just like ready to get together. Here we are. So yeah, good times in the live stream. Love it. Monica, wow, Taurus rising, Gemini sun, Sag moon. So I'm a Leo moon, but otherwise that's my big three as well. So both fire moons with the Gemini sun and the Taurus rising. Good times. I tell you what, it's apparently not a very common combination. I wonder, yeah, do you guys like find people a lot with your same big three, or do you feel like you've never met one? Capricorn sun, Aries moon, Aries rising, double Aries. Is your Aries moon in the 12th house or the first house? Virgo sun, Leo moon, Gemini rising, Taurus north node. Kim, did you see my video that came out yesterday that is specifically for Taurus north nodes having their nodal return during this current transit? That was uploaded yesterday, so definitely check that out. I'm actually doing all 12 of the North Node placements, a video for each one of them, just to try to break it down into something that feels more manageable. I've never done like a all 12 series before. I have so much respect for the people who do these all the time or have like so many of them on their channels. I look at that and I'm like, that looks like the most gigantic mountain to climb ever. So yeah, this is my first attempt at doing all 12 of the placements. And so the North Node in Taurus, if that's your natal placement, that video came out yesterday. If your natal North Node is in Gemini or the third house, that's coming out tomorrow. I got the Capricorn one recorded, the Capricorn North Node or the 10th house. I got that recorded yesterday, so that'll be out this weekend probably. So yeah, I'm just gonna chip away at it, like one placement at a time. And I am pulling a lot from the book I recommended to you guys, which is Astrology for the Soul by Jan Spiller. And it is specifically about the North and South Node. And she explains in the introduction of that book that like she is an astrologer, that is kind of her go-to. I guess she's no longer with us in the physical. So she would like go straight to the nodes and use the nodes as kind of a foundation for how to interpret everything else, how to, coach the person in the right direction. Used those North and South nodes. And yeah, listening to her interpretations, like each placement gets like 2 hours of content. I listen on Audible. So yeah, that's so powerful, that book. And when I very first got it, I'm like, okay, so I'm a Pisces North Node in the 12th house, which is also associated with Pisces. So I listened to my chapter and like was blown away. So I listened to it another couple of times. But making these videos, like sitting with that Taurus North Node chapter, I was like, I recognize myself in this. And then sitting with the Gemini North Node chapter, like, I recognize myself in this, but I have placements in Taurus and Gemini and Capricorn for that matter, because once again, I'm like, I recognize that I did go through this a while ago. And yeah, that's like a whole other thing. So yeah, it's it's very interesting how you can use these North Node chapters for more than just your own personal North Node placements. Like listening to that Gemini one, I have a whole bunch of stuff in Gemini, but my Chiron is there. And that especially, like, I think is where a lot of my dysfunction, you know, in Gemini comes from, is that Gemini Chiron kind of gets in there and mixes it up. And listening to how she talks about like developing your Gemini North Node, I feel like it was very soothing for my Gemini Chiron. So that's just kind of like food for thought as far as if you have the book, if you've invested in it, to spend some time with like every single chapter, because really we're all made up of all 12 zodiac energies. I say that a lot because it's one of my like core beliefs that we are all of them. Oh shit, I forgot to let my dogs in. They can't stay outside. It's very cold, you guys. I'll be right back. This took a long time. Here we go. Okay, thank you so much for waiting. Hello again. I don't know what I was talking about. The North Node book and the North Node videos, and I'm chipping away at them, and it's really fun. And all the chapters are good, no matter what your North Node is. And obviously that one's going to resonate like at a deeper dysfunction, no, at a deeper level. She describes it as your deepest dysfunction. Your North Node placement and house is your soul's deepest dysfunction. And more specifically, the South Node is like the part of yourself that's the most overemphasized. And that actually brings me back to what happened like this morning and right before I came in here. Normally in the morning when I'm going to do this, I'm taking in astrology things and, you know, all kinds of spiritual stuff to just like really set my tone. And this morning I ended up having to like do some emotion management on myself because that's what came up and that's where I was. And it is so interesting because as I journaled about what went down, I'm like, holy shit, my Virgo South Node is strong. Like the pull of the South Node in general, like really captivated my mind this morning as far as like really thinking about how it is our comfort zone, how it is like the most overemphasized part of us, that it's like so easy to just slip into it and not even be thinking about it. That like when we go on autopilot, when we stop making conscious choices about where we want to go, that we just naturally revert back to that South Node end. And it just like, the reason I bring it up is because typically like our South Node, when we operate there, it has to not work out for us. And that was kind of what happened this morning. Like I was approaching a conversation that, as I journaled about it after the fact, it's like I couldn't stop myself. Like I just like, I knew in the moment that like this is not maybe a good thing to talk about. Like I don't really like how I'm approaching this, but I can't stop the words that are coming out of my mouth. And to me, that's like kind of Virgo, like the shadow side of Virgo, being like overly critical and just like very alert to like what's going on. Let me pause and read this. You guys, like I got some features turned on my channel this week because we're big enough now. We're like in our big girl pants. And yeah, so my channel is officially monetized. That's amazing. I got to thank basically all of you guys, because you have to get to 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 hours of watch time before you can even apply for your channel to be monetized, which they then have to review and all of that. And so that process was supposed to take 30 days. I submitted the application on Friday, and on Monday morning it got approved. So I'm like, cool, that feels like abundance. And with that, there's now the little option in the chat, which is like why Monica's comment is highlighted. Thank you so much for your donation, Monica. And let's see what she says. North Node in Leo in the 3rd house, South Node in Aquarius in the 9th house. So that's a perfect example of where in this video series and in Jan Spiller's book, if you have that, it's like, be sure to take in for your North Node both the Leo chapter and the Gemini chapter. So the Gemini chapter is the one that's coming out tomorrow morning. And that way you'll have both pieces of understanding your natal North Node, North Star, like what is the soul evolution that you came here for. So the Leo one, I haven't read that one yet, but that video will be coming in the future. So watch for that one too. And these ones specifically really fascinate me because mine is the same sign, like it's in a sign and a house that are like associated with each other, Pisces in the 12th house. In this case, Leo is associated with the 5th house. So it's like, how do you know which one to follow? How do you put those pieces together? That's like where astrology gets really fun, in my opinion, because that's where we get into our intuition and kind of feeling our way through it. And there really is no right or wrong answer. And two people, both with Leo North Node, both in the 3rd house, may have it manifesting completely different, again, based on whatever else is going on in the chart. So yeah, that's a very interesting thing when that happens in a chart. And how I interpret it is something along the lines of, like, you've probably had experience in both of these things before. Like, you have experience in the 3rd house and you have experience in Leo. And yet Leo in the 3rd house is like what you're here to do this time. And think about like how many different combinations, like if you think about there's 12 signs, there's 12 houses, I think that makes 144 combinations. I don't know, somebody could tell me. That's like my middle school math trying to work its way up out of my subconscious and push that back down. But I think there's like so many different ways that the energy can be mixed and matched. And when we're doing this, when you have a sign and a house that aren't typically associated with each other, it's like the level of intuition that it takes to be able to walk your soul's path, to be able to like find your North Star, it's harder. It like, I mean, there's no other way to say it other than it's more difficult when you have energy in a house where it quote unquote doesn't belong. That doesn't mean that it can't find a way to function there. And that's really the whole point of having Leo in the 3rd house, is like you figure out how to be Leo, but like your stage is like standing in line at the coffee shop and your waitress at dinner. And like those are your stage moments, but you're bringing your full-blown performance Leo energy, which I can only imagine, because it's your North Node too, that feels really uncomfortable. Like that feels like the last thing that you'd maybe want to do, because that's what my North Node feels like. I don't know, you guys can tell me. But yeah, that evolution of like stepping into our North Node, it is really like coming out of our South Node, out of our comfort zone. There's a reason that we stay inside our comfort zone when we're on autopilot, because going outside of that, it is a conscious choice. It's often like facing a fear. It's like doing something that you don't even know if you can do because you've never done it before, and you're going to just put yourself out there, risk it, and hope for the best. Like that's terrifying, mildly, you know? So that is why I'm going through each of the 12 North Node placements to talk about like, how can developing your Taurus skill set through this transit of the North Node through Taurus, how can that help you for each individual North Node? And in that kind of a case where you have North Node in Leo in the 3rd house, you would watch both chapters. And then, you know, based on your resonance, based on like your intuitive reception of the Leo pieces and the 3rd house pieces, you put it all together to decide like, you know, what does it look like to do Leo energy in the 3rd house, where, how Stephen Forrest puts it, we are our signs and we do our houses. So in this case, you are the Leo energy, but you're doing it in the 3rd house. And what is the 3rd house? It's like that everyday life. It's like short little travel to go and do your errands. The people that you come into contact with just kind of on a daily basis in random everyday scenarios. So there's Like nothing to schedule, nothing to really do. It's like Leo in the third house is like, follow your inspiration. When you feel like going to Target to try on dresses, don't be surprised. Like if the girl in like working in the dressing room, like letting people in, giving them the tags or whatever, looks like she needs a little bit of cheering up. So there you are, Leo sun, to not Leo sun, but Leo North Node, to like cheer her up. You come across her because you felt like going to Target to try on dresses. You know, it's not like more complicated than that. And so that's kind of the trick to the third house, is to let your intuition put you in the right place at the right time, kind of thing. So again, thank you, Monica. That's my first little donation. Oh, you guys are so amazing. Okay, let's read this one. I get overwhelmed by all the information in my birth chart, like trying to read a map for decades and just found the key. Could you please cover full moons in natal charts sometime? Leo sun, Aquarius moon. So yes, and actually, so I have a playlist of videos that I listen to prep me for this morning, and I just made that playlist public. So if maybe Maddie can put that in the description, and on that playlist, there is a video of the lunar eclipse that happened in Taurus in November, so at the end of 2021. And I rewatched that video because the North Node is approaching that same spot in the sky, which means basically like the North Node is going to activate these same energies again. And so I wanted to look back and like see what that was all about. That's a really good video if you're just curious about full moons in general. But I mostly wanted to talk about, like, I get overwhelmed by all the information in my birth chart, like trying to read a map for decades and just found the key. Like, I feel like overwhelm is a very fascinating emotion. Okay. Like, just, it's really easy to get overwhelmed when we care about stuff. When things feel important to us, that's when we get overwhelmed. Like the sensation of being overwhelmed is like almost like being overwhelmed by how much you care about it. And that subtle distinction in like understanding can really change like how you pivot out of overwhelm. Because I get it. Like I totally get it. Like I am, with all my Gemini energy, like there's a real part of me that wishes I could just like absorb everything there is to know about astrology and psychology and life and universal laws and wisdom. Like I just want to absorb it all, like right now in this moment. And that can get overwhelming sometimes. Like I mentioned human design here a while back, and that got a couple comments from some people who were like, oh my gosh, that's a whole rabbit hole. I've fallen down it. It's amazing. We're gonna definitely have to do some human design live streams in the future. But after I went through the human design rabbit hole, that's what led me to Gene Keys. And I wanted to mention that, Gene Keys. Maybe Maddie can pull the website, because holy moly, guys, like it's just like, first it's astrology, then it's human design, then it's Gene Keys. Like there's so much. Like once you get to a place where you even feel comfortable, like you've really got a handle on your natal chart, then there's your human design chart. That's like a whole nother thing. And then from there, there's your Gene Keys chart, and that's a whole nother thing. And so again, easy to get into that overwhelmed place. But for real, like think about like the alternative is basically to be bored and lifeless. And I don't know about you, but like that to me is 8 trillion times worse than feeling overwhelmed. So that's one. And number two, how abundant it feels that like the reason I'm overwhelmed is because I have access to all of this powerful information that I want to take it in, but I'm just a little human, and I can only do one thing at a time, you know, with this brain, with this consciousness. Like that's just how it works. Like one thing at a time, you know, that's debatable. Multitasking, is it real? I don't know. That's a talk for another day. But easy to get overwhelmed. And then you realize like, I'm only overwhelmed because I'm so passionate about absorbing all of this. I'm so passionate about how much this is resonating. And so then you can pivot off into gratitude for your resonance and how You can even feel that this is something that I want to spend my time on. And do you know that feeling when you're like scrolling through Netflix and now like when you get to the very bottom, they have this feature that says, do you want us to pick something for you? because you've been scrolling for a really long time. Like, no judgment, but you know, we could surprise you. We could just put something on, like if you're really tired of scrolling. And I'm like, no, I think I'll scroll some more. Like, you just like don't even know what you want to spend your time on. So that's the alternative of overwhelm. And overwhelm is extreme and it's uncomfortable for a moment. But anytime we're in uncomfortable emotions, it's about understanding why it's there and how to use it to line up even more with like who you really are. And who you really are is grateful for having a map in the first place. You know, like that's the worst, is when you don't have a map and you're just freaking lost. Like that's almost unlivable, you know? So yeah, you guys, this is, oh, you are so welcome. Gene keys. Oh my gosh, Maddie. Yes, we love gene keys. So that is a whole nother thing. And you guys have no idea how much it just is one of those synchronistic moments when you tell me that I'm good at simplifying things. Um, it reminds me of my gene keys chart. I was thinking about that this morning because the pearl of like, gosh, see, this is where I'm so brand new to gene keys. I hate to butcher it and even go into it, but the pearl is kind of like the ultimate, what you're trying to get to. Like, what is the pearl of you? Like the pearl of your soul. Like, takes a long time to form. There's like a whole path through the gene keys that's like, you got to do all these things. And after you evolve all of this, it's like, bam, like you land in the middle and there's your pearl. And for me, it's simplicity. So when you tell me that I can, like, you know, explain stuff in a simple way, like that's like me on my path doing what I'm born to do. And I kind of highlight that because I had a friend a long time ago who like just was kind of hyper focused on what their purpose was, like just all the time. I wish I knew what my purpose was, and it really bothered them that they didn't know what their purpose was. And so for me to like understand in my gene keys that like literally my purpose, my pearl, the pearl essence of my very soul is that I can just like understand things that maybe are complicated and then restate them in a simple way. Like that's my purpose. Does that sound like a purpose that a soul would like manifest just to do that? I don't know, but I did. And is it worthwhile? I don't know. You guys tell me. You tell me all the time that I'm good at breaking stuff down. And so purpose is such a slippery thing. It's like something that we give to ourselves. And honestly, that's like one of my favorite reasons why I study this kind of stuff in the first place, because honestly, I come from a background of very low self-worth. And building self-worth and building self-esteem, you got to find a reason to like yourself. And when I started studying, I started with Myers-Briggs, like way back in the day. This is turning into like a whole little story time, but that's okay. Pearl sequence. Thank you, Maddie. Yes, that's what it's called. Yes, I started with Myers-Briggs, and finding Myers-Briggs was like my first taste of all of this, because I just like fell down that rabbit hole. I could not learn enough. I had to have every single person I know take that freaking test. That's why I love natal charts, because I only need their birth details. And if I really don't want to ask them, I can just find their birthday and skip the birth time and just pull it myself. Like, yeah, holy moly. I love studying human behavior. And honestly, in that study, like really my passion early on was like trying to fall in love with myself, trying to find a reason to like myself. I knew a lot of things about myself, but pretty much all of it added up into I hate me. It was not a pretty picture. And from there, it's like I was sick of hating myself, but so what? Like, I still don't like myself. So like, you got to spend enough time and like really study, like, what are the strengths that go along with all these weaknesses, because it was a trade-off. You know, like you didn't just like be bad at these things just to suck at life. You gave up these abilities because you have other abilities. So what are those other abilities? And focus on what you do have. Like, I'm a big believer in building our strengths, not fixing our weaknesses. Like, we don't need to worry about fixing anything that we're not good at. It's like, find what you are naturally good at and focus there. And so that's like, again, like, you know, this is my pearl, is just to simplify things, just to break it down in simple terms. And so, yeah, I love it when you guys tell me that. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. She's, why shouldn't I'm trying to break myself of that habit of assuming gender. So I do apologize about that. Someone says, I started with Myers-Briggs too, due to low self-worth too, in the 90s. Yes, mine wasn't until like 2014, 2015, thereabouts. That was like, I mean, I was still depressed for a good long while, like a couple years after that, but that was the beginning. That was the beginning of me seeing light in myself, because, and I still remember like the exact page that did it was when you take, so Maddie, will you put the link for taking the Myers-Briggs test on the 16 personalities website? That is by far my favorite. So we'll put the link to that, totally free. And when you take it, it gives you several pages at the end of like describing your type to you. And the page that really turned a corner for me was the strengths and the weaknesses, because I recognized myself in every single weakness. I was like, holy crap, these people like know me on some kind of deep level. But I also recognized myself in the strengths, and I was like, these are strengths. These are things that other people can't do. I thought we could all do this stuff. Like, what? I thought this is just normal. And so it's like our superpowers, they kind of hide in plain sight because they're so normal. So that's what Myers-Briggs gave me, was like a first glimpse of what are my actual strengths. And then there's also a really great service. This one costs, I think, like $8 or something to take StrengthsFinder. And that also, like for the $8 version, you get your top 5 strengths, which is really plenty to work with at any one time. One time I did do the $74 version, which gets you like all the strengths. So like there's 80 maybe in there total that they're trying to figure out, like, what are your most natural strengths that you have at this time. And so one time I paid the full money so that I could get the whole list, like all the way in order, all the way down to the bottom. And that actually was really interesting. I had already spent a good long while with just my top 5, but at that point it was very interesting to look at how many of like the social skill, like people relating type skills and strengths, like were all at the bottom of my list. My people skills, guys, like they sucked big time. And I was lonely. So lonely. Oh, you guys. Yep, there's StrengthsFinder. That's a really good one. Did my Myers-Briggs at a job I had, and yeah, it was really eye-opening. Same thing. They gave it to us at work. And even that was like something that started after the I had probably worked there for like maybe 3 years, and then they started it as like a new hire thing. And when they did, they also put everybody else that already worked at the company back through this program to like do the Myers-Briggs and some other things. And so that was like my first introduction to it. So yeah, it, like, I would say life-changing. And the biggest pushback that I heard from like people back when I was in my Myers-Briggs days was like, that test is BS. Like, you can just say whatever you want, and like the result doesn't mean anything. And I'm like, well, yeah, it's like a mirror. So if you put on a mask, like it's going to reflect the mask. So like, okay, what's your point? Like, do you want to know yourself or not? Like, be honest with the freaking test. So that was that. But like, that's again why I love astrology, because hey, it's just your birth time. It's just your birthday. That's it. That's all I need. You don't need to tell me anything. And I'll just read the chart and you tell me if it makes sense or not. And like, people tell me it makes sense. So yeah, it's, I love astrology. I love the fact that it's like just the birth time. That's it. Yes, I was still in my mask in college. We have all been in a mask. I mean, at some point, maybe still are sometimes. Like, it's a survival thing to like wear a mask. And I was reading this very interesting thing. I have no idea where I found it, but it was basically talking about like, especially when you take a test like Myers-Briggs at work, people are more likely to skew more extroverted than they are. They're more likely to skew more thinking than feeling. Like you can also skew more sensing than judging. Like there's like this sense of who does the company want me to be? And I'm going to answer the questions like that because the company has, so I'm going to make a result that they're going to like to see. And again, like you can do that. It's possible to manipulate the test, but it doesn't serve any purposes as far as like self-development and that kind of stuff. So when did I start studying astrology? It was August of 2020. So yeah, August of 2020. I came to it through a path of knowing for the last several years that I was interested in working with a life coach. And that was really all I knew, was that I want a life coach. And it was just kind of in the back of my mind. Like I wasn't ready for it at that time. I had a lot of other things on my plate. But I knew for quite a while that like, I do want to find a life coach. I really am interested in having that experience and just seeing what it's like. And so it was July of 2020 when it just clicked in my head that like, I'm ready for my life coach. And with that knowing was my friend who was a life coach as part of this like business of life coaches, but she had since gone independent. And so now she was doing it kind of herself. But I knew like she has these ties. And so basically in that moment, I was like, I just need to ask her, who can you recommend me to? And that was just kind of like this whole package of an idea that came. And she said, you would love my coach, and yada, yada, yada. She does this awesome chart work. That's all she told me. And I'm like, charts, cool. I love charts. And so I emailed her, and the response I got was something that I'm actually adding into my practice right now. It's not quite ready yet, but basically the first step in working with Melissa, is her name, was a questionnaire about who I was and where I was on my journey and like, what am I hoping to get out of this time? And so I took the time to sit there and like write a whole thing in each box about like, here's the answer to your question. And so we met and did like a vibe check, and then did a 7-month program with her, or container, where it was like one-on-one Zooms. And the basis of her practice, she uses natal charts, and her work is to like reconnect women with the sacred feminine inside them. So that, like, I didn't know I wanted that, you know, I didn't know I wanted my natal chart. I didn't know I needed to reconnect my sacred feminine. But I am about, actually, like here next week, this coming Tuesday, will be my last session with her in my 3rd container. So I've been working with her at least once a month since August of 2020 was when it worked out for my first session to be with her. So that was the first time I saw my natal chart. And then she took me through it, like that very first session, and really all the sessions. Like it was like you'd pick 1 or 2 pieces and you're just going to be with that energy. And when we would get off those calls, I would go and like learn everything that I possibly could about the couple pieces that we focused on. So I would just like fall down rabbit holes for that for 2 weeks, and then go back and like get the next couple pieces and like go back. So that was the first 7 months, was her teaching me my natal chart. And it was actually in October when I started doing my own sessions to teach other people about natal charts and do readings for people. So it was like 3 months of study. And then I just jumped into doing some sessions. It kind of all happened organically. And that was something too that, I know I'm all over the place, but that's okay. This morning, I was listening to Molly McCord's podcast. I don't remember which episode she did this in, but it was like, she's talking about how there are so many people awakening on the planet right now. There are so many new people coming to astrology and spirituality in general, chakras and meditation and all of these things. And it's like, there's so many people in this world who doubt their own knowledge. Like, I don't know enough yet. And I mean, we can point to some different zodiac archetypes that are really notorious for this, but it's like, I don't know enough yet to make a difference. I don't know enough yet to teach anybody anything. And it's like, there are beginners that know nothing. So you know a shit ton. So get out there with your pile of what you have and teach what you have so far. And as you learn more, teach that. And as you learn more, teach that. And like, just get started, right? So yeah, like 3 months of study and I jumped into teaching, and I have like so found myself in this, like this last 18 months of, and if you think about it, the nodes moved into Sagittarius and Gemini in July of 2020. And then in August, I found my natal chart for the first time. Like July was when I got the epiphany. I need my life coach. I'm ready for that now. And that was like an expense. That was an investment it's not an expense. It was an investment in myself to work with Melissa for this last year and a half and really connect into my soul, my resonance, my intuition, my allowing myself to do what I already knew I wanted to do. Like that part of it, to just give myself permission, like that's been, girl, like such a process. Somebody's meowing. Trapped somewhere. Story of my freaking life. Like these animals, I love being at home, but literally they think that my full-time job is just to open doors. She's trapped behind the bedroom door. So give me just a sec. You're welcome. You guys, you have no idea how much I appreciate you being cool while we tend to the animals, tend to the flock. They, you guys telling me so many nice things. Okay, this is also super fun. Fun story. I don't know if we'll get to astrology at some point, probably. But how this all unfolded, that like the epiphany of I'm ready for my life coach, that was July of 2020. The month before, like 2 weeks before, so in June, I go to what's called like an angel reading, I think is what she says. And basically she hears your angels and then she relays these messages. And, whether you believe in that or not, I'm totally open-minded. I want to experience everything and I'll have my own conclusion from it. Okay. So I paid my $20 and I go to the angel reading. It's on Zoom with people from all over the country, which is always cool because you get to hear their reading, which is sometimes very interesting. But anyways, she told me that she's like, you're really into astrology, right? And I was like, no. I mean, I'm a Gemini, but I don't know anything else about it. She's like, no, like the stars, the sky, like the planets, like you're into all that. And I'm like, no, I'm not. Like, what are you talking about? I was so confused. And then a month later, I need my life coach, and I joined that first call, still not having any concept for what a natal chart was. And I joined that first session with Melissa and saw my natal chart, and something inside me said, I'm finally here. Like this is it. This is what I've been walking towards. And so in that angel reading, she also went on to say that I was an astrologer in a past life. Again, whatever you believe and all that. I don't know if I believe that so much as I do personally subscribe to like the highest frequency of Gemini is channeling. And I've been practicing my channeling since February of 2021, like actively practicing it. I use my podcast episodes for that. And so the ability to just relax my inner self and say the words that are there. So the willingness to just say what comes through is what I've been practicing. And that is as much, I think, responsible for my interpretation as the study that I do and like what I actively soak up in the books that I listen to and learning from other astrologers and all of that. That helps inform me. But there's also an ability, like an intuition that happens like not inside of me, that just like it just comes through with the examples and the elaborations and the clarifications, like all of that just kind of builds itself. meow. It just, yeah, the animals. They, speaking of past lives and karmic debt and all that, my dog, Stella, I think about her life before me a lot because they estimated that she was 2 at the pound or whatever where I adopted her from. And so she just showed up one day with this other dog. Somebody brought in like these 2 dogs that they found, and somebody came and claimed the other dog and said that Stella wasn't theirs. And so they kept her for a little while longer than she'd been there long enough. So they spayed her, and then they had to keep her for like a day or 2 days or something for observation after she was spayed to make sure she was okay. And then Saturday morning, whatever day it was in August of whatever, 2016, I think, she went up for adoption. And that was the day that I woke up and was like, I'm ready for my dog. And that unfolding had been coming for at least a year of knowing that I was going to get a dog, but I wasn't like exactly ready. And then one day I just woke up and was like, I'm ready for my dog. She's ready for me. I need to go pick her up. And so like I get online and Dogs for Adoption in Dallas and like am looking through the first website, the second page, her eyes. I'm like calling them up, like, is she still there? They're like, yeah, she just went up for adoption an hour ago. I'm like, okay, I'll be there. I'll be there to get her. Don't let her go anywhere. So I went and got her and I brought her home. And that was, 2016. So yeah, she had 2 years of living on the streets. And when I got her, oh my goodness, she's like a little anxious mess. She reminds me of myself. She was afraid of water. She was afraid of air. She's afraid of loud noises. She is terrible food insecurity. She would eat all her food so fast that she would throw it all right back up. So I had to like spread her food out on the kitchen floor to make her like really hunt for the kibbles. So yeah, like it has been a long road of recovery with this little anxious, wounded Stella, but I know that she made it. She made it to here in this loving, luxurious animal paradise, the Ponderosa. So she repaid her debt in those first couple years. But yeah, what the hell was she doing in a past life? Because she had a rough start for sure. Can we see her? She's in the chair right here. Let me see. That one, Stella. She got her sweater on and she having a nap. This is a bad chair for her to be in my lap. Otherwise, she would be physically on me. She's had some like separation anxiety lately, which is interesting. She's just like attached to me. So anyways, we're like 43 minutes in and I haven't started covering the topics. So yeah, I'm going to do that. I'm going to like pull up my little page here. I feel like we could have like a ask me anything kind of live stream, just dedicated to stories and whatnot. Because I love telling stories. Okay. Let's do this one. I should be drinking coffee at the same time. There. Okay. So I think the main thing that I want to talk about, like the most specific, is just Mercury turning direct late last night, depending on where you are on the planet. It happened roughly 11 hours ago. So Mercury is now direct, and that also means that all planets are moving direct at this time until the end of April, I believe. And so that is said to bring an ability to get some momentum going. Like this whole process of retrogrades that we've been in for months now is come to an end, and retrogrades are a process of reassessment and reevaluation. And we've done that, right? Like we went back through what was and the past and took stock and all of those things. And now we're ready to move forward. So this is a time of, like, especially since we're talking about Capricorn, that's where Mercury station direct, I believe, was at 24 degrees of Capricorn. So it's still in a conjunction with Pluto. And now that it's going direct, it's going to go back exact with Pluto. Plus, it's moving so slowly as it just gets started. So it still has a little while of like being in Capricorn. So we have all of these Capricorn planets happening right now, including Mercury going direct. And basically, how that is manifesting is now we're ready to move forward. We're ready to do the Capricorn thing where we know what we want to create. We know what we made in the past. We learned our lessons from what happened in the past. And now we're ready to maybe make some different choices. We're ready to get serious about the goals that matter to us. And that's where, so like when Venus stationed direct, like back at 11 degrees of Capricorn, that was last week, it went trine to Taurus. And same right now, Mercury and Pluto are both trining North Node in Taurus. So when we have that trine, which is a harmonious aspect happening between Capricorn and Taurus, I was thinking about like, what does a harmonious relationship between those two look like? And Taurus is where we figure out like what's truly important to us, what's truly valuable, what's going to actually create physical security for us. And then Capricorn is the visionary that knows like how to actually do that, how to actually like, what is the goal? What is the overarching thing that we need to create? And then they also have the ability, the stamina, the perseverance, the discipline to actually accomplish basically whatever goal you set out to do. And in general, this is like more of a Capricorn conversation, but I was listening to the Capricorn North Node chapter out of Astrology for the Soul yesterday. And so it was like, how do you develop your Capricorn energy? And one thing that like really struck me is it takes like such a leap of faith to move into developing your Capricorn energy. And until you've taken that leap of faith, there's a very low self-confidence in your ability to do it because you've just never done it before. And so that first time is this huge leap of faith and actually going for what you want, what you can see in your mind. You don't know if you'll actually get there, but you can't get there if you don't ever take a step forward to try to get there. So it's an exciting time of all of this energy in Capricorn is like, we're likely to be faced with things that maybe scare us, that have us feeling like, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I can do this. Like, I don't know if you guys have ever been skydiving, but that moment when they like first open the plane door and you start watching people like fall out the plane and you're like, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I can do this. But then you get to the door and you're like, fuck it, let's just do it. And like you give the guy the go and now you're falling. So it's like that. It's like there may be some nerves in what it is that like we're being faced with. Like at this point, and this is again going back to Mercury being involved in Mercury next to Pluto, is like we could potentially be in for some really hard conversations, like things that we just really don't want to say, don't want to face that, don't want to do, like I just don't want to go there. But if you're going to move forward, if you're going to have your goal and build your goal and do what's important to you, you have to move through the space of doing the thing that you don't want to do, like if that's standing in your way. So I have an example in my own life that's like still very much unfolding. So I intentionally don't say much about it, but it's like, this is a time of like, when we're talking about building up our Capricorn, essentially we're talking about building up our own self-confidence and our own self-respect. And this is where it gets really tricky if you don't ever take the leap of faith. Because if you sit there and wait and think like, well, when I feel ready, then I'll do it. When I have enough information, when I have enough self-confidence, when I feel ready, then I'll do it. It's like, you don't ever get there. Like, unless you're willing to do it scared, you don't ever get there. Do it scared is a very good story just in general. It's like, it's a whole thing that I got from a friend of mine a few years ago, but basically like if you're going to actually do what you need to do in your life to like line up with the life that you came to live, like chances are those turning point moments are going to be hard and like things that you did not want to do. It's going to be things that that's where Capricorn's self-discipline comes in and says like, no, you're going to do it because you need to do it. And I fully empathize that you don't feel ready, but you still have to do it. It's that Capricorn in its lowest frequency is the internal bully. Yeah, I definitely resonate with that. And so like that harshness on ourselves to like force ourselves to do things. And it's like in its highest frequency, though, it is a loving push that says, if you're ever going to get to the top of the mountain, you need to start walking. Like, I know that you don't know how you're going to get all the way up there, but you have to move forward. So that's like not false. Like, that's very true. So yeah. Oh, I wish you can talk about intercepted planets. My Capricorn and Cancer are intercepted in the 3rd and the 9th. Internal bully. Wow. Yeah. Internal bully. That was Molly McCord's phrase that I also heard in her stuff this morning. That, oh, yeah. Yeah. We are our own worst enemy. And when you feel like a slave driver on the inside to yourself, from my experience, that's also how people end up experiencing you and your energy. And just in general, that's like the low frequency manifestation of Capricorn is like, you can't force people to do things. You can't just make people do things. And Capricorn, like in its lowest frequencies, that, yeah, you just force them. You just tell them. It's the rule. They got to do it. And it's like, no, that doesn't work. Like, and honestly, like you can't treat people any differently until you treat yourself differently. So yeah, that was quite an experience when I opened the grocery store. That was my first experience managing people, and Capricorn is a very like manager type energy. And it was still so like, based on my relationships with my employees, like it became very clear that I am still being a slave driver on the inside because I see it playing out with these people that I'm managing / responsible for. Yeah, there was still some negative patterns of behavior that had to get worked on. And that just, shadow work in general, like having the guts to look at yourself and say like, wow, yeah, that's not very attractive behavior. If I was totally in control of myself, I would never choose to act like that. So let me spend some time and see if I can feel my way into why did I act like that? What was going on underneath the surface that caused me to freak out because the soup section didn't get faced? Like that seems a little extreme. So yeah, it can be fun to get into your shadow work habits, but yeah, it can also take a lot of guts and take a lot of willingness to just discipline yourself to do it, because Capricorn is like that side of life where we do things that maybe we don't want to do, but we have to do it because that's what you need to do. And let me just tell you that like there is such a balance to that energy, because yes, Capricorn is great for helping you to get to the top of the mountain. Capricorn, if left unchecked, will also die trying to get to the top of the mountain and will never get there because they forget to eat, they forget to drink water, they don't care about those things because that has nothing to do with reaching my goal. My goal is this. So Capricorn left all by itself is really not the way to go. But figuring out how to tap into that part of yourself when like when Taurus lines up with, this is important, this is valuable, I can feel the abundance in this, I'm going to discipline myself to show up and do the part that I need to do to make sure that this happens. So that's how Taurus and Capricorn work. I think that's where I started like maybe 15 minutes ago, coming full circle. But I do want to go back and talk about intercepted planets, because I also have intercepted planets in my chart. So I will share with you the latest version of how I understand that, and it is still evolving. And so I have to tell just what mine are. So my Aries, this is the one that really helped me to put this together. So my Aries is intercepted inside my 12th house. And if you don't know what intercepted means, it just means that sign isn't on the cusp of any house. It is purely sunken down in the middle of a house. So like my 12th house starts in Pisces and I'm a Taurus rising. So Aries is totally inside the 12th house. And my Mars, which would also kind of give us some clues as far as my Aries energy, is in Pisces, also in my 12th house. So all of my Martian, Aries, warrior, self-assertive energy is like buried in my 12th house. And it's like, I believe when we have an intercepted energy, basically the energy that's on the front end of that house, so like in my example, Pisces is at the beginning of my 12th house. And then the rest of my 12th house includes Aries and a teensy bit of Taurus. I believe that Aries is actually like absorbed by and part of my experience of my Pisces energy, like two become one. And now there is no experiencing them apart from one another. They are merged. So like in your example where they say, let's see, Capricorn is submerged in Sagittarius and Cancer, I believe, then would be submerged in Gemini, meaning I think you have Sagittarius on the cusp of your 9th house and Gemini on the cusp of your 3rd house. Let me know if that's right. But if that's the case, that means that inside your Sagittarius energy is your Capricorn energy. So in order for you to act out your Capricorn energy actually looks like engaging your Sagittarius energy. So that's why like my inner warrior, I lost track of her a long time ago. I have no idea where she's been my whole life. I did not sync back up with my inner warrior, my Aries energy, until I got really good at getting into my Pisces space, my opening to the universe, my trusting in all that is, my faith in well-being being dominant, my compassion to myself and to every single living creature that has or will ever exist. When I get in my Pisces space, my inner warrior comes up out of there because there's like this protective feeling over the collective. So I would have to give it some thought. I mean, it took me a year and a half to come up with like how all of this fits together for my own chart. So it'd take me a second to think about like, how does Capricorn being submerged in Sagittarius, like how does that play out? But yeah, so opposite, my Sag is in Venus, is 3rd house, Gemini. Gotcha. Yes. Okay. So yeah, that's intercepted energy is very interesting. I'm still working on, when you have one intercepted sign, you automatically have the other one intercepted. So like for her, Cancer and Cancer, Capricorn, and oh my gosh, wow. Thank you so much. Holy moly. Yeah, so like my Aries is intercepted in the 12th house, and then Libra is intercepted in the 6th, and that means my Libra energy is inside my Virgo. So it's like and my South Node is in Virgo. So it's like part of my service that I provide, like includes my Libran abilities, but I'm still working on connecting with my Libra energy. I personally don't feel it. If you see it in me and you want to help me find it, that would be amazing. But yes, again, thank you so much for that donation. She says, you are blessing my soul. As a nurse, I want to use astrology with my psych NP. I don't know what NP means, if you want to tell me that. I just have not been given the go-ahead to start my classes. I don't want to heal through my brokenness, but my Chiron is in Aries, 28 degrees, meaning you're coming up on your Chiron return. Chiron's in Aries right now. And in the 10th house. Interesting. Oh, yeah. Like the 10th house is such an interesting place. The midheaven in general, I was thinking about that this morning. Like, what does it even mean, the midheaven? Like, what even is the 10th house? What does it mean that our what energy, what sign lands there? And I think it really is about like transforming that energy. Like when we come, it's more at a low frequency. We have a hard time. That's like part of our like shadow. We start with this lower frequency energy and the world just has to reflect it. It's our midheaven. And like for me, Capricorn up there, it was so that internal bully, like it was ruling my life for a good long while until I finally like had a cracking open moment that's like, I'm just one human being. There's only so much I can do. I can't be responsible for all the things all the time, all the ways, blah, blah, blah. So there is part of like a really foundational piece to even what I teach, like in all of my material, that is that knowing and that compassion that says I'm only one person, there's only so much I can be responsible for. Like that was my own kind of midheaven work, was like learning that for myself. And then I think the soul's work, the midheaven soul's work part of it is like, then you help other people make that same transformation. Plus, anytime I see Chiron in the 10th house, it's like, you're a healer. Like, that's just what you're going to do. Like, you giving your medicine away, it's like the primary focus of what you're known for. And really, like, whichever house your Chiron is in, that kind of shows, like, where are you going to both experience your deepest pain, but also give your greatest healing to the world. And again, when your Chiron's in the 10th house, like, yeah, there's going to be a whole lot of people who know you for your healing, is how I interpret it. Chiron always means it's going to be a painful path to get there. But now you have that, like you can resonate with other people who are in pain for the same reasons, and you can give them the medicine that you've conjured for yourself to help yourself get to a transformed place, and then help other people who are making that transformation. And that goes back to like that Molly McCord sentiment about there's so many people waking up right now on the planet. So like, even if you only know a little bit, you still probably know more than someone who just started 5 seconds ago. So we can all be teachers and healers to some extent. Like, even where you are right now today, you're more ready than you think, because readiness depends more on where the other person is. Like, you know, if you're both climbing on the mountain and you're ahead of them, even if you're only 2 feet off the ground, like they're still down here trying to figure out how to put their foot on. You already did that. You figured out how to put your foot on. So teach them. There was, oh my gosh. Oh, this is so good. So this is a full circle moment for me personally, because this moment was very uncomfortable in my life. But this goes back to when I very first started at the software company, and we were in training. We were in the training program, which was like 12 weeks. And it was like school. It was like you go to work from 9 to 6, 5 days a week, and you're in class. And then on Fridays, like test day and like blah, blah, blah. So anyways, so 12 weeks of that. And we had like a 4-week review with our trainers and our supervisor, and just like, how's it going? Like, this is the first check-in. And that was basically, they gave me all this glowing feedback, and at the end they're like, is there anything that you'd like to share with us? Like, do you have any feedback that you'd like to share with us? And I went into some detail about how I would really appreciate it if we could speed up the training, because I'm pretty bored. I'm just very bored with like the pace that this is all moving at. I wish we could go faster, because like, come on already. We got that. And I'll never forget the guy. I don't think he liked me very much. He was one of the main ones who told me on multiple occasions how harsh my energy was. But anyways, so my tone, I think, is how he put it. My tone was harsh. But anyways, so he looked at me and he said, if you're on the bus and your seatbelt's fastened, look around and help other people get their seatbelt on, because we can't go forward until everybody has their seatbelt on. And then he just looked at me and I was like, got it. Okay. Yeah, you're right. I was a tutor in college. Like, I love tutoring. Like, that's okay. Yes. Okay. Duh. Yes. Okay. And it just was one more moment in my life where, yeah, like my purpose, my whole function is to understand and then help others understand. So I appreciate you guys telling me that I'm doing it. Here I am. I'm doing it. Yeah. Chiron in the 12th house is a toughie. Man, that's got a couple of those. My goodness. Basically, how I interpret Chiron in the 12th house is, one, it is one of the most painful upbringings that you can experience from what I understand. And that you just never really felt like you ever really landed here. Like just kind of adrift. The bond with the mother is usually not very good. And then, that's the wounded part. And then the healer part, though, it's like your healing is 100% intertwined with the healing of mass consciousness, the collective. The 12th house is where the human experience blends into the spiritual experience. And in the spiritual experience, we are all interconnected. We are all part of the same source energy, just coming forward as individual extensions of source energy. But when we merge back into our spirit, we realize like, oh, you're me and you're me and you're me. We're all just one. We're all just here. And so when you heal a Chiron in the 12th house, one, it's very difficult, but two, it serves the entire collective. Like all of us, the wounded healer, the Chiron healing that we do, it does ripple effects out into the world. And it, again, the placement of it just kind of depends on where are you going to be offering your healing. But Chiron in the 12th house, it's like you don't even have to offer it. It just energetically happens. Like if you can figure out how to heal 12th house Chiron, like that is something that gets energetically communicated to the collective. So like there's really like not even a face-to-face physical offering of the energy to others for it to be part of everyone. Literally every single being receives the download of your healing when you have a 12th house Chiron. So yeah, I am loving how many of you there are here. And that is, wow, that's a heavy soul contract. It is, like, and that's something that we signed before we came, and like our whole natal chart, like it is exactly what we meant for it to be. So that's something that like anytime we look at a placement where it's poking at our tender spots or our pain, it's like, that's for something. Like it's not for nothing. And it can take years to get to the side of it where you can see that that was all exactly what it needed to be, like mine. Like I needed to go through 15 years of depression and medication and being diagnosed with all different kinds of things. And like I needed to go through that experience. I needed to have what it felt like to not want to live anymore. I had to know, because for me to do what I'm doing right now requires a sensitivity and a compassion to meet people where they are. And sometimes, like, especially when you're a light worker, you meet people in darkness. So if you don't know how to be in darkness, then you're no good to them. It's like when you try to go out and save a drowning person and they're so flailing and just crazy that they drown you both. And shadow work is just like that. Being a healer is just like that. It's like, if you don't have your own solid ground to stand on, then their shadow will consume you too. So learning to work with my own shadows was absolutely necessary before I was going to have anything to give to anybody else. And yeah, it's like, it kind of sucks in the living of the first part, but by the time you get to this part, oh my gosh, it's so delicious when people are like telling you how much you're helping them and how much it resonates and how grateful they are and on and on. Like, it's like all I did was heal myself and then show up and tell my story. And that is something that literally every single one of us can be doing anytime you're ready. And that kind of goes back to that Capricorn energy of, this is a time where we get serious about what is it that you want to make? What is it? And then commit to it and do it. Do the steps, take the steps, even if it's one tiny little step at a time. Like, that's cool. Just do it. And there are, well, and like going back to what the other person said about like, my timing is held up and I can't move forward yet on my class. I got it all ready, but like I'm waiting for this piece to come through. Let me tell you this part about how like this YouTube channel is a perfect example of that, where I felt this connection with what I was doing and I could feel that it's important and that it'll be valuable to other people. But for like 10 months, I mean, up until like the middle of January, I had like 85 subscribers, which is not to throw shade, because that's 85 individual souls who had shown up and who were, you know, participating in my work. And that was huge. And I was so grateful for all of that. And then all of a sudden there's like, bam, there's all of these other people. And it's like before the full-blown physical manifestation, like before the class starts, before you get that green light to like move ahead or whatever it is, like there's a space, especially when we're talking about the 12th house, there's a space for energetically bonding with and communicating with the people that you're going to meet, the people that will sit in your classes. Like you can connect with their energy right now. You can bond and nurture and support their energy right now. And that is like, I mean, that's something that we can do years and years and years before it's ever even time to be in the physical manifestation of what it was that we were walking toward all along. And I think there's a lot of like the nodes in Taurus and Scorpio in this too, where we're letting go of attachments to physical things and knowing that we can do our soul's work 100% inside of ourselves. That like, yes, it will involve other people from time to time, but ultimately the work is happening inside of us. Our healing, our energetic communication with the collective, like that's something that we have complete control over no matter what is manifesting in the physical world. Even if you're sitting in a situation right now where, you know, maybe you want to start a podcast and you haven't started it yet, there can be an energetic connection with the people who will eventually someday hear your podcast. You know, it's not about the timeline and hurrying up and doing the thing and like I have to make it happen in the physical. It's like if you haven't done it yet, chances are there's a not readiness at play that like, okay, that is real. That takes time to like feel ready. But until you're ready to make the physical step, there's this energetic connection that can be happening. And that is really satisfying to get super connected to that, because even since a lot of people have shown up on the channel, I've still been marinating in our energetic connection and spending time in there with you guys. And like, how I see it is like I get inside my vortex and my vortex is connected to mass consciousness vortex, and mass consciousness vortex is connected to every single individual's vortex. So like I feel like there's like a big community of all of our inner beings hanging out in the vortex. Like inside each of us, we can go and get into this super high frequency where there's just so much community and fellowship and like, oh, it feels so good. I spend a lot of time in there. And then once a week, I come on here and I talk to you guys. And that is something that I wanted to share as well. I meant to share like all the way in the very beginning, but you know, didn't happen. So I am launching my Patreon, and Maddie, maybe you can put that in the description. So one of my Capricorn lessons learned, which there are many, but another one of them is, especially when you factor in Taurus, is to start small and build things one step at a time so that it is sustainable. Like old Carly would have this whole vision of like, I want to build this whole thing. And then I would build the whole thing. And then I would feel like a slave to the whole thing. And I would regret building all of this because I don't want to live like this. So I'm very much employing this lesson learned in how I'm setting up my Patreon, where basically one baby step at a time. When you sign up for the Patreon membership today, it will give you access to one Zoom event each month. I'm going to do on the 4th Tuesday at 10 a.m. Central Time, so the same time of day as this one starts. But the 4th Tuesday of each month, we'll come together on Zoom. It'll actually be a webinar, but that way, if you want to ask a question, we can bring people forward one at a time through the webinar functionality to like basically have a conversation between me and however many questions we can answer during that time. Very much modeling this off of Abraham Hicks' presentation style, where she offers like a 15-minute introduction and welcome to kind of set some vibes, and then spends the rest of 3 hours taking as many individual questions as she possibly can. And so that's where you could share like more specifically what you're facing, or if you have an astrology question, that's fine. If you have a shadow work question, that's fine. If you have a life question, whatever it is, or like a situation where, you know, this is playing out with this person and I just really need to see it more clearly, or whatever it is, like we can kind of focus on whatever each person wants. Nothing's off limits. I'm cool to talk about whatever you want. And we'll just have those little mini conversations. So the Patreon, I love this. I love this functionality where I opted for the cheapest version on my end so that they take the smallest cut possible of what you guys offer. But when you do that, it's like every single person who subscribes for the monthly subscription gets to set their own monthly subscription amount. So I think that's perfect. The minimum just on Patreon is $1 a month. So if that's what you decide, you set your subscription up for $1 a month, it'll automatically charge you on the first of each month $1. And if however much you set, you get access to the community, and that's where that link will be to join the Zoom on the 4th Tuesday. So that is, yeah, I am so excited for that. Still a few weeks until the first one. It won't be until the end of February. But I hope you guys can make it. Also, if you can't, like if you just physically can't be there the 4th Tuesday at 10 a.m. or whatever, the recording of this event is also going to be posted back to the Patreon community specifically. So I'm not going to make it public on my channel. It'll be a video on YouTube, but it'll be unlisted. So you won't be able to get there unless you're in the Patreon community. So even if you only catch the recording, I have a feeling like Abraham's seminars, it's like the people who get chosen to ask the questions, they end up facilitating a conversation that resonates with basically everybody that's there. So even if you only take in the recording, I have a feeling it's going to be really good stuff. So yay, I'm so excited for that. And to just like kind of have a little bit more personal dialogue with you guys. I love seeing the repeat names and would love to get to put some faces with it. So yes, there's that. What else? What else are we talking about here? I feel like I kind of skipped all over the place about Capricorn because we have been talking about Capricorn for months, it feels like. The Venus first entered Capricorn the first week of November 2021. So it has been in Capricorn for like 3 months now. Is that right? November, December, January, beginning of February. Yeah. So 3 months already, and it still has a month left to go. So this whole time of like these 3 months of Venus doing its thing in Capricorn, plus now we have Mercury in Capricorn, plus Mars is now like conjunct or about to be conjunct with Venus. And then they'll travel together for like 4 weeks, which is a whole thing that I'm going to dive more into next week. But all this Capricorn energy, and Capricorn, it wants us to do what we came forward to do. Like no matter what house you have Capricorn in, there's a decision-making point, like a before and after transition that's happening in the collective as a whole. But because we're talking about Mercury, Venus, and Mars, those are personal planets. So that means like our day-to-day personal energy is very much tied up in this transition that we're making, where the old way that we did things, the old structures, the old hierarchies of power and influence, they are crumbling. And that's a larger thing that's going on with Pluto and Capricorn, which has been going on since November of 2008. But this specific few months, and really the month of February, we are getting to like all of this that we've taken stock of and kind of taken a good, honest look at our lives and what is working, what's not working, what do we want to create that maybe we don't feel ready to create it yet. Now that we have all of this perspective, Mars joining Venus in Capricorn, it's like basically this bursting forward moment of we're ready now. Like, again, even if you're not fully ready, like you really don't know if you can do it, Mars is here now, and Mars is courageous. Mars charges into battle whether they're ready or not because the cause matters. Right? Like we've done the work, we've taken a look, and we've gone through these retrogrades, and we've decided like what truly matters, what's important, what do I want to make? And for me, this YouTube channel is really what has emerged as far as like, what do I want to set my sights on? And at this point, this YouTube channel is by no means the only thing on my plate. So for me, it looks like having to reassess the things that are on my plate, the things that I have previously committed to, that I don't want to do that anymore because I want to do this. I want that time and energy to be free so that I can create this YouTube channel, do more live streams, do more videos, on and on and on. I love it. I find it so satisfying on all the levels. And so that's really great. It's really great to like have a clear goal, but the fear part creeps in when we realize like, okay, well, you're going to have to like make some changes over here. You're going to have some conversations and resituate this priority into a place where it does take up less space. So you have more space for this over here. So it's like believing in your own vision, having confidence in your own vision and like what truly matters to you, what it is that you think is important enough to devote your life to, no matter if anybody else understands or not. I've said many times that like my personal, like immediate family, my parents and siblings, my hometown, the people who know me in real life don't know that I do this. And I like it that way. I do. I think it's like a cleaner approach to the energy. Like I just let it be open to the universe, and whoever is going to stumble into this space will be meant to be here. So yeah, it's like what matters to you enough to step outside your comfort zone. And I was also watching the other day, I binged it in I think 2 days. It's a Netflix original show called The Woman Across the Street from the Girl in the Window. Have you seen it? It's this stupid title, very long. I think that's part of it. It's kind of supposed to be funny. But anyways, she says in there that like the biggest risk of all is risking nothing. And there was like a whole thing all around it. But like that really stuck out to me. The biggest risk of all is risking nothing. It's being too afraid to risk anything. That's the biggest risk. And Capricorn, especially Mars in Capricorn, is really helping us to like kind of put some go power behind where we may not be fully confident yet. So that's, thank you so much. That is, yeah, that's a big leap, maybe. And that's where I do think there's enough other energy, especially with all of this Neptune and Jupiter in Pisces that's going on right now, where communicating energetically with your future self, like feeling into the people who you'll meet on this new path and the you who you'll be to them when they meet you and who they are to you and all of these things, like you can feel your way into that. And like basically the way that works is like it gets you excited enough to where you're finally just like, okay, fine, fuck it, like I'm gonna go for it. I'm terrified and I'm going for it. I'm singing and I don't know how to sing, but I'm singing. Oh my gosh, yeah. Like if you want an episode that shows you like it's okay to be awkward, the very first episode of my podcast I learned is called Go For It. And that is essentially the energy of that episode. Like it is so cringy and awkward for me to watch that now, but I intentionally am never going to delete it because that's where I started. And that was February of 2021. So I'm about to have my podcast anniversary, which is very exciting. And yeah, I hadn't just put that together. But anyways, Maddie, will you pull the link to that? I hate to send you all over there because again, it's so awkward. But like if you're in a place where like you're not ready yet, quote unquote, like listen to this. Listen to how not ready she was. And you know, and that one, like I even had to edit it because I lost my train of thought sometimes and like had to edit some dead air out of the middle because I like didn't know what to say and like, oh, I don't know what to do with my hands. Yeah, it was so awkward. And the second one wasn't much better. And then by the third one, I was in like a full blown panic attack, like full blown anxiety, vulnerability hangover of like, what have I done? Why did I do that? Oh my God, like, did I really just do that? Like, how stupid can you be? On and on. I beat up on myself so much for those first couple episodes. And I look back at them now and I'm like, I wouldn't be here if I hadn't been willing to be an awkward fool on the first like 30 episodes, you know? It really took me a while to like get my momentum going. And so if we're never willing to like be a beginner, we'll never become an expert or master. So you got to start somewhere. And if you're looking for inspiration, maybe take in that first podcast episode where, you know, it happened. So depending on what your definition of success is, I crossed the finish line, and that tends to be my definition of success. I used to be a runner, like in cross country, and I was like not the fastest, but that really taught me like, as long as you finish, that's really the whole point. You started and you finish. And the fact that that first episode even happened was such a, I can't describe that energy. Like I was flying high. I was so brave. I was like just full of myself. I was so excited. I was so ready to podcast. And I mean, I had been wanting a podcast for years. And so, I mean, by the time it finally happened, like it was a big deal. And then actually doing it, I'm like, I have no freaking clue what I'm doing. Like, I was so scared to even press record. I didn't even think about what it was going to be like once I actually got in there. So, yeah. What else, you guys? I feel like I kind of got off track as far as like the astrology that I was supposed to be talking about, you know? Oh, seriously, thank you guys for your donations today, for becoming a Patreon. Like to get to make a living at doing this is like just delicious on a level that is hard to put into words. And just one more nod from the universe that says like you're on the right track. And again, I go back to a year ago when I was so terrified to push record for that very first time, and like just so grateful to that scared girl for doing that, you know? Like I couldn't be me if she hadn't done what she did. And it's awful and cringy, but you know, like it's all good. You mentioned having a life coach. How do I find one? Well, I would be happy to point you towards Melissa, who was my coach. And otherwise, like, I don't know. I like basically how my process works, but then again, like I have Mars and Pisces in the 12th house, so I tend to like put things out into the universe and then let it come to me, let like the timing unfold, and like it just normally shows up in front of me, which sounds like really spoiled rotten by the universe. I understand, but you know, I got that going for me. So I don't know. But yeah, if you want Melissa's info, my email address is owningauthenticity@gmail.com, and you can just email me there and I can send you her info. Oh, yeah. So Mars coming into Capricorn, joining up with Venus, and now going to move through Capricorn with Venus. It's like, oh gosh, this is so good. So Venus has had like a complete deprogramming / reprogramming since November when it very first entered Capricorn. It went all the way up to Pluto. And then I think it was like December 19th, it turned retrograde and went back to 11 degrees. And now Mars is joining it at 14 degrees. They'll come together and then they'll stay together for like 4 weeks. So just everything that Venus has learned in these last few months, as far as your priorities and your values and your, like, what's really important to you, not your obligations and your senses of responsibility, but like at the end of the day, like, what do you want to put your energy into that when you go to bed at night, you feel really satisfied with how you spent your day? And now Venus is like tired. That's like these last few months have been intense in terms of clarity and finding our way into this place of even knowing what matters to us. And now it's like just in the nick of time, here comes Mars to like team up with Venus and walk with each other, like they're walking together. And now Mars is there to like embolden Venus's new agenda. It's like adding power to what you know now, what you know to be true now. And I have some videos as far as Venus conjunct Pluto is a good one, where I really break down Venus and Capricorn, Pluto, Capricorn, Venus conjunct Pluto, like all of that. That's a really good one, considering that conjunction is still coming up again for the third and final time until next year. And then I thought I was going to mention another one, but it's not coming to me. Oh, yes, I do. Venus retrograde, that video. That would be a good one to take in now that retrograde is over for Venus. And it's like, what happened for me in Venus retrograde was the repeated question over and over and over again, is this really worth it? And so many things in my life that I was giving energy to got labeled as no, not worth it. And that was big. That was really big in terms of like the structure of my everyday life. And so now, like I said, like I've decided, you know, I really want to focus energy here. That means I have to get energy back out of this thing. I don't want to do that, but I need to, so that I can give it to what's really important. So that's where Mars showing up to like kind of take Venus by the hand and like, let's do it together. Let's combine our energies and let's point our entire being towards lining you up with what you've decided matters. It's like Venus got to set the agenda these last few months, and now Mars is here just to bring courage and bravery and that willingness to assert yourself to literally whatever Venus has decided. So that's like super exciting. And you just like got to look at like how beautifully all the energies line up, because Venus and Mars are going to be together, like I said, for like 4 weeks. And the exactment of the Pluto return for the US is happening like February 20th through the 22nd, thereabouts. And so that Venus and Mars will be conjunct for that date. So it just seems like all very, and for the third time that Venus will conjunct Pluto, Mars will be with it. So again, it's like you're facing hard things, but you have this like backup, this like bodyguard who's showing up just to like clear your path a little bit and like make sure tired Venus can like get to where she decided she wants to go. So yeah, that was really good. Oh, let me catch up on the chat a sec. Thank you, Maddie, for always putting the links. For a video about the node transit we just finished, but couldn't find it. Did you do one? Yes. Okay. So these ones, there's two that I would recommend. One is the Sagittarius solar eclipse video that I did the beginning of December, and I'm more pointing Maddie towards that one to go grab the link. Thank you for signing up for the Patreon. So that one, the Sagittarius solar eclipse, and the one that is the, actually, is that the same video? It's called like Sagittarius cycle in review. I feel like there's two, Maddie, and they're like right there together on the channel. But that's probably the closest thing that I have. Going forward, I'll likely make a video just like the one I did for Taurus and Scorpio as they change signs. I saw the solar eclipse one, but I haven't watched it yet. So I point you towards that one because the eclipses take place in the signs where the nodes are. So the eclipses are just really strong openings, like portals of brand new energy coming in, but the energy that's coming in is related to the nodes. So those eclipses specifically, I think I put a T in there. It's wonderful. That's just riffing, guys. Have you seen that on, I don't know what his name is, but Dolly shows me all the time. Tatum, I think. Tatum, the English bulldog. I don't even know. But yeah, they make up things for him to say. And one of them was like, that's riffing, you guys. You didn't eat all your lunch? That's riffing. I want some lunch. That's just riffing. Yeah. Yes. Solar eclipse. Eclipses in general, the solar and the lunar, they happen most of the time in the signs where the nodes are. So the eclipse events are tied. They're like fated events tied to what the nodes are already stirring up in our lives. So that's probably the closest thing that I have just considering I didn't really start posting YouTube videos. I technically started in March of 2021, but I really started in September of 2021. So I more just barely caught the end of that transit. Yeah, I guess you got to check the replay. Got to go back. And I love that you guys told me that you listen on 2 times, which I can't even imagine. I feel like I already talk so fast, and then 2 times, like, is it even legible? I don't know. But I didn't know you could do that on YouTube. So I learned something new. And yeah, so now I've been listening to most of my videos. I only do like 1.25 or 1.5. Otherwise, like, because my brain, it gets going and it'll like go on a whole thing. And by the time I come back, I have no idea what they're talking about. So yeah, I got to slow it down a little bit. But what else? Oh, I wanted to talk about the nodes. They are like really prominently featured in the month of February because of some aspects that they are making to some other planets. So like the North Node in Taurus is trining Pluto and Mercury right now, and basically is holding its trine with Pluto for quite some time, which if you want to look that up, it's like you can just Google like Pluto trine North Node, and there's article after article about what that means. And I have this in my natal chart, so I've studied this one quite a bit, but it's like power, power to do what you need to do. Okay. Like Pluto is all about the transformation and making it happen. And North Node is uncomfortable, but when you have Pluto connected to it, it's like there's a willingness to do it. There's a willingness to face your fear, step outside your comfort zone, make the evolutionary leap of faith that you need to make to step into the new territory, to prove to yourself that you can. It's like it just gets easier. So yeah, that's a really fun one that's happening. Plus Mars and Venus, they're moving across Capricorn, coming back to Pluto. So they'll be making a trine back to the North Node here towards the end of February, early March. Also, the nodes are squaring the full moon. So the nodes at the time of the full moon, actually I have that pulled up. I know I can't share with like the basic, let me pull that back up. I did have it pulled up. Okay. With the basic YouTube streaming, it's like you can just turn on your webcam. That's basically it. No screen sharing or anything. So that's on my list as far as like getting some fancier streaming software so I can share my screen on these things. But on the full moon, which is February 16th, the full moon is happening in Leo at 28 degrees while the sun is in Aquarius at 28 degrees. And the moon and the sun then are squaring the north and south node at 26 degrees Taurus and Scorpio. So it's making a box in the sky. So it's like this full moon is pushing us forward big time on whatever that nodal journey is bringing up for each of us. And that's where, you know, I am working on releasing the videos that go through all 12 of the North Node placements. So regardless of what your natal North Node is, how can you get the most out of the Taurus North Node transit? I also, though, after that, want to do a video on like having Taurus in the first house, second house, third house, fourth house. Like, what does it mean to have the North Node transiting your 10th house or your 12th house, or, you know, wherever your Taurus energy falls in your chart? So that's like a whole different way of looking at it. So in the meantime, there's, yeah, like the full-blown transit video plus the individual like natal North Node videos that are coming out as far as figuring out like, what is this nodal axis bringing up for you? That purge in Scorpio, what's it bringing up for you? The building up of your Taurus, what's that bringing up for you? For me, I'll share that I'm seeing how highly developed my Taurus really is. And that's really cool. It's like just kind of giving thanks for how much I've grown in this Taurus end, because all of that, it seems new, like even just in the last like 6 months or so. And then also we're all purging Scorpio with the South Node moving through there. And yeah, that's looking like my old patterns, especially my old relationship patterns, where I have a Scorpio descendant, meaning I'm a Taurus rising, and a Scorpio Pluto. And I can have a tendency to get enmeshed with my partner where I am very much all up in their shit. And what that looks like then when you have the South Node purging Scorpio is they don't like it, right? Like they're like, get out of here. You're not, I didn't invite you. You showed up unannounced and I don't want this. It's like they're just not cooperative with it. And so all of that, when people are kind of like pushing us away, even energetically, it's like pushing us back towards that Taurus end of things, that North Node end of things, where this is a season for turning back into ourselves, focusing back into our breathing, and yeah, like finding how to help ourselves feel better, finding how to help ourselves feel secure. Because when you're enmeshed with your partner, which is something that, you know, codependent relationships is kind of a recurring theme in my world, it's like when they aren't in a great headspace, it's really difficult for you to be in a good headspace. So there's like almost this need to like control their mood just so I can feel better. And it's like this transit is helping me to see that like really the best thing I can do in that situation where I feel that like, oh, she's in a funk, like she's in a bad mood, whatever. It's like to let her go, just to like back away and energetically let her go and turn my sights back on myself to say like, how could I nurture myself right now? How could I take care of my own psychology? You know, what kind of calmness would feel good right now? What kind of yumminess would feel good right now? I can only ever really take care of myself. And then someday, if she asks for my help, I'll be right there to help her. But helping people against their will, if you have a bad habit of that, like I do, yeah, Scorpio South Node, like they're not going to be super receptive to that. Oh, ooh. The Crooked Trail, I'm reading your comment about with my Leo sun, Aqua Moon. And so it's flipped. Whoa. This new moon, full moon period feels completely epic. Chiron turns 12. What do you mean about that? Actually, physically been healing from chronic illness. Wish I could explain. I am so excited for you. I feel like this Leo full moon is going to be like a bursting open point for a lot of people. Whether you have a Leo moon or not, I think there's a willingness to be seen that Leo possesses. That's like one of Leo's brilliances, is that it is willing to shine its light where other people can see it. And there is something about like going back to the Capricorn energy, even about like, you know, we're really not ready, but we kind of got to take a step forward anyway. And then all of a sudden, here's this Leo full moon, and we're that fire of Leo, that strength and courage and passion and joy and love. It just kind of is a tidal wave that carries us forward. And it's really making me want to Google when the Leo full moon was in 2021. That's new moon. Sorry, I really want to know. It would have been in February. I'm guessing about the same time. Because, yeah, I started my podcast last year it was like February 28th, I think, which is very interesting because that's also the day the grocery store opened. So I got a thing with February 28th, apparently. But yeah, that Leo full moon, it really lights our fire and our readiness. Like we're not satisfied to sit in the shadows anymore. Like we have an emotional need to be seen. If you have a Leo moon in your birth chart, you know right what I'm talking about. But I got to think that like the Leo moon, the Leo full moon happening in the sky for everyone is kind of that bursting forward moment, not to mention it is squaring the nodes, and squares are, okay, so squares are tense aspects. So that's like a red line between two signs of the same modality. So like in this example, Taurus and Scorpio are fixed, Aquarius and Leo are fixed. So like all four of the fixed signs are squaring each other. And I've been thinking about this a lot lately because I have heavy Leo and heavy Scorpio energies. and those are square to each other. And like that's kind of what this, like the Leo moon is going to be square to the south node while it's the full moon. And like, how are those two things different? Well, they almost like couldn't be more different in terms of night and day, where Leo wants to shine bright and like cheer everybody up, and Scorpio's like, I will sit with the dark, deep truth, even if it kills me. Like, it's just a little bit of a different vibe. And the square aspect in general is really beautiful. It's what gives birth to growth, squares and oppositions. And it's like, how can you take Scorpio and Leo and create something together that is even better than either one of them could be by itself? So I've been thinking about like, how does this fit inside of me, like my Scorpio side and my Leo side? And it's like, I think Leo's joy, like their absolute most favorite thing, this is a part that's inside of all of us. We all have Leo energy somewhere. It's like, you just want to make other people happy. You just want to shine and make them laugh and make them smile. And when you see that you've like cheered somebody up or brightened their day, it's like there's a sense inside of you, like you did what you're supposed to do. You did the right thing. And it just like feels so good. It's so delicious to make other people happy. And then I think about Scorpio. Scorpio is like a deep, dark wisdom about the emotional pain that is possible in this human experience. And in that, I think a depth of compassion forms that almost like empowers Leo to shine even brighter. Like, this world is full of so many things that can put you in your feelings, can put you inside like a depression or questioning things or trying to process something. There's plenty of that going on, and we'll never escape it, and we're not supposed to. But the world needs more of the Leo energy, like shining its light, cheering people up, making them happy, uplifting their spirit, teaching them how to uplift their own spirit. By you shining your light, you're kind of demonstrating to others how to shine theirs. Like, that's why I show up and tell my story, because people are like, oh my gosh, like, yeah, that's what I like. There's so much power in just showing who you are. And it's like Leo can get a bad rap for being vain and like a little bit self-obsessed. And like, yeah, I totally get that. But at the same time, like, there's self-awareness going on. That's one. And number two, there's self-confidence that says, I'm willing to let you see me because I have that confidence. I have that love for myself. So I love myself. So I think maybe you might love me. So here, take a look, see what you think. I'll put myself out there. You can judge for yourself. And Leo actually contains like a shit ton of courage when you really think about it. I love the way Stephen Forrest puts it. I say this a lot because it was such a radical understanding for me. Was Leo is the part of us that is brave enough to let it matter what other people think. And I especially tie that here, where it's not really just like caring what they think, it's caring that you are cheering them up. And if you say something to cheer them up and it pisses them off, that's not what I meant. Like, that's not what I meant to do. I didn't, that was shit. I got off track somewhere, obviously. So like, Leo is very concerned with like how they're being received. And so there's, you know, a whole different well to Leo energy in terms of its shadow frequencies and its light frequencies. Yeah. In the 8th house, which is ruled by Scorpio. So I feel like, oh, yeah, combining Scorpio and Leo is a very, very interesting, like, just food for thought. Like, I've just been kind of thinking, like, how does Scorpio square Leo? Like, what does that even feel like? How do they butt heads? How do they disagree? And it's like, yeah, Scorpio wants to go off by itself or with its one beloved, and Leo wants to take center stage in front of 8 million people. And it's like, yeah, those are very different agendas. But again, Leo full moon is going to be this burst of power to be seen and shine bright so that other people who may be in the darkness, like maybe your light reaches them. So, food for thought. What is North Node square ascendant natally? That means you either have your North Node like up by your midheaven or up down by your IC. And I would think that that's going to change it a lot. But that's interesting because our AC or our ascendant is kind of like our base operating mode into the world. Our ascendant and descendant, it's a very core piece of our energy, where they used to use rising signs or the ascendant instead of sun signs to be like the most accurate description of somebody's personality. And I can still see why that is. It's almost even like more unconscious. Yeah, I would say more unconscious than our sun sign. But so like that's like your default mode of entering the world. And then if your north node is squaring that, means your south node is also squaring that. And so like picking those apart one at a time. So like north node square your ascendant. It's like there's something about the default way that you approach the world that is not the path that your north node is. So it's like becoming extra aware of what is your ascendant energy, what is your north node energy. And then it's like same thing on the Leo Scorpio side of like basically at the end of the day, you have to choose one. Like you can't be all hidden and secretive and dark in Scorpio and all bright and shiny and center stage in Leo all at the same time. Like you do with a square and an opposition, eventually you do have to pick one. But the beautiful thing about those tense aspects is that before you pick one, you basically have the experience of both of them. So even though in your instance, I would say, picking the north node side is going to be advantageous as often as you can consciously do that. But I was going to say something else and it just dried right up. That happens sometimes. The south node square ascendant. I don't know. Let's just give me 2 seconds. Let me Google because now I'm curious. So south node square ascendant natal. I don't know. I'm gonna have to look at that and study. That's honestly, so that's why I love doing these and all my videos in general is like, it is such a, just honestly, it's a mechanism for focusing my study because kind of going back to what we were talking about at the very beginning, where like you just get flat out overwhelmed by how much there is to know. Like, I want to know everything. I want to buy all the books and on. And you just can't. Like, you're only one human being. There's only so much you can do. You can only learn so much at once. And so doing like this video series, for example, where I'm focusing on each individual north node and comparing it to this transit of the north node through Taurus, like that's just a way to focus my learning. And now you've planted this question in my mind, so I'm going to have to go Google that and read about that afterwards. So there's that. So yeah, it's just like a way of kind of like focusing, because that's really all we can do. And that's like what's missing when you're overwhelmed. There's just too much. And like bringing back your focus into like what one thing can you soak up right now and just really savor it, savor how delicious it is to even get to soak up new knowledge. Like I remember the day that I had heard about human design, but I had never really looked into it. And then there came a random Saturday where all of a sudden I just like had to pull my human design chart and I dive down these rabbit holes and I'm listening to YouTube videos and I am just like consuming everything. I sat there for like 12 hours and just like dug and dug and dug and dug and dug into what can you teach me about about my human design chart for free on the internet. There's a lot, spoiler alert. And then Gene Keys was same thing. Like there's just so much out there, but to turn it into videos, to like turn it into like these live streams where I do my best to focus into like the transits that are going on right now. Like that's just honestly a mechanism to focus because there is so much. Like, so yeah, why not learn I feel like I've studied so much about Capricorn, for example, these last couple months, because there has been so much energy through Capricorn. I wish I could show you Scooby right now. She's like sprawled out on her back. But yeah, so like studying astrology and human design, or really like ourself in general, letting our intuition, aka our curiosity is another name for our intuition, like letting our curiosity lead the way and letting the path kind of emerge. Like, yeah, there's a ton to learn, but we got to start somewhere. We can only study one thing at a time. And so, yeah, you might as well just pick one thing and start there. So like back when I first started looking at my aspects, which in your natal chart, the lines, all the crazy lines in the middle, those are your aspects. And if you scroll down further, there's usually a table of all your aspects that shows like, here's what all those crazy lines are and like what planets are connecting and all of that. Like, I remember the first day that I was like, I want to look at my aspects. And it's like, great, you have 72 of them. So I don't know how many I have, but it was a lot. It's like, okay, so what do you do with that? And yeah, it's just one piece at a time, one step at a time. And honestly, that takes us right back around to the Taurus North Node, because that's what Taurus is known for, is their ability to persevere and be persistent and do the one step at a time process where, yeah, I mean, there's no way to climb a mountain in one step. It's a series of a million little steps. And Taurus is our staying power. It's our ability to keep going after the same thing over and over and over again until we get there. So building up our Taurus energy through this Taurus North Node transit, I just can't say enough good things about it. I want to read this one. I have Pluto conjunct my South Node in Capricorn in the 4th house. I love it when that happens. That is so fascinating. Each and every time there's like a whole different reason, but whenever you have like the signs and the houses are like flipped. So like in this case, Capricorn is associated with the 10th and Cancer's the 4th, and they have Capricorn in the 4th and Cancer in the 10th. Pluto conjunct South Node sounds to me like a really, really traumatic experience in past lifetimes. No, I guess Pluto conjunct South Node, that must be the transit of Pluto. So you're saying you have South Node in Capricorn at like 26, 27 degrees. Oh my goodness, I can't even imagine. Pluto conjunct your South Node. Yeah, that would be intense. Oh, I don't think, yeah, there's no way I'll live long enough to have to go through that. I may live long enough to see Pluto go through my North Node, but yeah, wow. I don't know. I've never researched that before. Pluto moves so slowly that there is a very small chunk of the population who will ever even experience the transit that you're talking about. So yeah, gosh, you guys are giving me so many good ideas on Googles. I love Googling. I love learning all the things, as you can tell. Cosmic Human Design on YouTube. I definitely will. Thank you. Oh, you guys. For both Western tropical astrology and true cosmic constellations, but in different ways. Brandon, you'll have to tell me more about what you mean by I personally account for, find both Western tropical astrology and true cosmic constellational sidereal astrology, but in different ways. Like, are you just saying that you use them all, like find valid pieces in all of them? Because if so, I'm like right there with you. I don't really study the other ones per se. I think just because I'm still so new, like I feel like I'm still just kind of getting into tropical astrology. I have dabbled a bit into Vedic. I feel like the specifics in Vedic astrology really overwhelm me. Not to say that it's not valid, because there are astrologers out there who can get like super specific with predictions, like looking at the signs and transits and all the things, and like they can tell you like very specific things that are going to happen. And I just like, I don't know, call me crazy. I'd rather be surprised. I don't use astrology like that. And this is probably also coming from, I've been getting a lot of requests lately about uh, doing individual sessions, and do I do individual sessions? And yes, I do. And Maddie, maybe you can put the link to that one too. But my focus is on making videos that are free for everyone to watch. My next focus is the Patreon community, where you can literally sign up for $1 a month if you want. And then if you are someone who can afford it, there are individual sessions available. And I have devoted 3 days a month, 3 Saturdays a month, to be available to schedule those individual sessions. So if anybody's interested in that, that link just got put in the description. And sometimes helpful to me. Yeah, I've followed several Vedic astrologers that, like, even though, you know, obviously like their planets are like in completely different signs, like they're over here interpreting like Mars just entered Sagittarius, and I'm over here saying Mars just entered Capricorn. So like there's some of that going on, but at the end of the day, I still listen, because I'm like, they're still talking about Mars and Sagittarius. So they're still interpreting what those two energies mean together. I can't use this knowledge for, you know, tropical astrology until next year, but that's okay. Like I still like to hear different people's perspectives. And yeah, like Vedic, just, it feels very specific. But anyways, I got a question about doing an individual reading, and the question that they wanted me to answer was, when should the person buy a business? And I feel like that's a question that there are astrologers out there who would like open up the chart and bing bang boom, and like, here's your answer, here's when you should buy a business. I personally, like, I don't know how to do that, I think is how I have to say that. I don't know how that works. Like how I like my first approach to this person's question when I very first read it was something along the lines of like, I mean, I don't know how to tell you how, like, when you should buy a business, but I can tell you based on my own personal beliefs that if you're not already living it, then there is something inside of yourself that is ready to be worked on. And once that work is underway / complete, the business will naturally manifest. It just, again, this might be my spoiled Pisces Mars in the 12th house. It just manifests, like everything just shows up right in front of you. Yeah, like when you're ready, things happen. So like that's how divine timing works. So my questions that I'm like still kind of drafting in my mind, like back to this person, are why does this person want a business to begin with? Why do you think it hasn't happened yet? Like those kinds of questions. And essentially at that point, we're entering into a shadow work conversation where, yeah, let's figure out like, basically, why don't you have the business already? Like if you were 100% ready to have a business, you'd have one. So if you don't have one, then, you know, what is it? What is going on inside of you that tells you like you're not ready for that yet? Or, you know, how do you understand what the reason is as far as why it hasn't happened yet? And let's go from there. I personally, like, I wouldn't even know where to begin to tell somebody like, yep, July of 2024, like that's when you should, oh my goodness. I got to think though, there's astrologers out there who do that and they know how, and I could probably learn from them, but yeah, that's not a skill that I have in my toolbox just yet. Yes. Okay. So time management / boundaries to fully enjoy life. And I feel like, yeah, that whole concept of like, I'm doing these live streams on Fridays. So that's already 4 or 5 days a month. And then doing individual sessions on 3 Saturdays a month. So that's 3 more days. And then plus the Patreon community 1 Tuesday a month. So like very, very quickly, you can eat up the whole month and there's no time for like anything other than work. And I'm like, you know, for me in what I'm doing, my main business asset is my energy. like my ability to show up and like have my energy managed and like have my frequency at a high place where I'm clear and I can, you know, try my best to explain things in a way that it's easy to understand. And so if I don't leave ample time to like manage my energy and raise my frequency, then the whole rest of everything falls apart really fast. So I've been thinking a lot through this like Capricorn energy / Venus retrograde, all of that, like how many days a month do I really want to commit to working? And like in a very honest way, like I'm sitting, well, like if you add up what I've committed to so far, you get to like 8 or 9 days a month that I've committed to working. And I'm going to see how that goes, because I tell you what, that's 8 or 9 more days a month than I was committed a month ago. So yeah, a month ago I didn't work. I don't have work days. I just do what I feel like doing when I wake up in the morning. And then I started adding back these commitments, which is very Capricorn, very like, I want to build this. I want to build this community. So I'm going to commit to being there on these days and like let the energy form around this commitment that I'm making. And so when we get serious about what really matters to us, commitments are totally worth it. And I don't know if you guys like have that going on in your life as well, as far as like commitments that are shifting, either commitments that you feel like you need to break or new commitments that you're suddenly ready to make, where before you were very just like, no, I don't want to commit to anything. Like I liked it when I just had 24/7, like I don't have anything going on. Like my calendar's just open for the rest of time. I like that a lot. And then the Capricorn new moon rolled around January 2nd. And all of a sudden I was like, I want to do a live stream every single Friday and talk about the transits. And, you know, here we are. The rest is history. You guys are so nice. Aw. Thank you. Seriously. My, yeah, keep it easy peasy. My Leo moon can get real attached to the nice things that y'all tell me. So I try to keep that part of myself in check. I try to absorb your beautiful words. But yeah, try not to let it be my whole world. Otherwise, you run into a situation where you're just gobbling up the feedback. And then all of a sudden you accidentally like the fish who bit the hook, and now you're hooked and you're in a shadow work moment, which happened here recently. I'll tell you guys about that. And then I'm probably going to call it a day. I definitely feel myself winding down here. But so on this past Monday, which also feels like a lifetime ago / 4 days ago, I uploaded my part 1 of the US Pluto return video. And long story short, I got my first negative comment that I've gotten in like a month. And the last time I got a negative comment, it was very, very interesting. I hardly ever get a negative comment, which always just makes me grateful to like remind myself of that. But when I did a month ago, I just was like almost instant compassion for this person who is clearly not having a nice minute as they're sitting here, you know, complaining about my content, but like ultimately it's their inner world that is suffering, and they're using me as the excuse to like let it out. And like, that's okay. I'm fine with that. And then on Monday, I got, you know, a month later, I got my next negative comment, and I took it a little bit harder than last time, but still better than what I normally do. And it was probably one of the most productive comments I've ever gotten on my channel, because basically the negative comment was like disagreeing with the perspective that I was putting forward in the video. And in doing that, in disagreeing with my perspective, they were also outlining their perspective. And as I sat with what they said, I realized that my old understanding was, I don't want to make anybody upset. I don't want to offend anybody. I don't want to like trigger anybody. I don't want to do that. Like I had a very like near panic moment when like you think about upsetting anyone. And when I see why this person is upset, which is very understandable from like the whole thing that they sent. I realize that I actually am okay with triggering this person to be upset in this moment. I'm okay with that. And that was huge for me personally, to say that, like, you know, sometimes in shadow work, there's healing and we feel better. And the other part of shadow work is when we very first have our shadow shown to us. And almost always that we lash out, we shoot the messenger, we don't want to believe that that's really us. And so we get mad and we blame the other person instead of taking ownership for our own shadow. And I think all that was with that person was like, I showed them their shadow, and their shadow is bubbling at the surface, and they're feeling it. And they told me about it. They told me how what I said was not okay. And like, okay, but it is. And this is my perspective. And that was another piece of it, on like my willingness to upset people. If that's how they come to it, that's the reaction that they have, that I have to be okay with that, because my part of the process, my control of the process, is in the writing of my notes and the feeling my way through the energy and processing the energy myself, and then sitting down to record and then editing and realizing that, yeah, this isn't the energy that I want to present. So I deleted all the first recordings and then I do it again. And I sit there and I edit and I think, I'm putting this energy out into the world. Are these the ripple effects that I want to have? And I sat with that video for weeks. And I spent all that time like feeling through my own resonance, like, what is it that I want to put out? And I took my time and I made something that felt right to me. And this one person did not like it at all. And so in this whole experience, like, it's also had me go even deeper, like underneath the sensitivity of my Leo moon, who doesn't want to offend anyone, who doesn't want anybody to be mad at me. Don't be mad at me. It's okay. It's okay if people get mad sometimes, because Leo, like, yes, they want to cheer people up. And I think kind of pulling back in that square with Scorpio, it's like, I don't want to just like put a Band-Aid on a bullet hole and like call it a day. Like, oh, you're smiling now, right? You're good to go. Like, no, like I want to really help them heal something. And so sometimes cheering people up, like maybe they're starting from a place all the way back here where first is the uncomfortable shadow being shown to them part. And yeah, I've realized this about myself for years, that like I am very provoking of people's shadow selves. I personally have my own relationship with my own shadow. And then there's part of me that I think is like the Scorpio descendant, where like I reflect people's shadow back to them, whether they like it or not. And some people do not like it and they will tell you about it. And so, yeah, it's very interesting work to be like what I would call myself, like a shadow worker of sorts, where not only do I pull people's shadow out of them, but I also want to help them heal it. So I don't want to just like leave you stranded in the middle of your shadow. Like that was the whole point of that video, was that I was trying to like bring the shadow to the surface and offer the emotion management pieces that like go with helping you to feel good, even though there's the shadow's present. Yeah, I think the emotion management pieces were kind of lost on this person, but that's okay. Like I think they got out of it what they needed, whatever they were supposed to get out of it. My favorite line of what they said, they're like, this started off so interesting until you blah, 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 blah. And I was like, well, I'm glad you liked the part that you liked. And obviously that led you to this part, which was like a bomb going off in your shadow. So like, I mean, the universe brought you here. So I got to think like that's the way it needed to work out. So yeah, it took me a minute to get there, but yeah. You are teaching a change of mindset. You are literally carving a new consciousness, and no one likes that. I won't say no one. I do exactly resonate with what you're saying there, but you guys like it. Like so many people have showed up on my channel, in my comments, talking about how like Deep and Dark is beautiful and like, yay, shadow work, and like, you know, keep going with your inner demon killing videos. And like, I mean, dude, there are people out there who are ready. There are people out there who are ready to face their shadow, who are ready to take responsibility for the feelings that are bubbling up inside them. And, this person like felt pretty severe anger, like was very defensive and aggressively defensive, I would say. And again, like that's coming from a place of that's something inside of us. And I've felt defensive enough times to know that like it's coming out of my own insecurity. So as much as I can remember that as I move through this world, like provoking other people's shadows, and just remember that like their process is going to be whatever it needs to be. And my intuition and my divine timing and moving through like what feels right to me, that's really the best I can ever do. That's all I can offer is my best, and whatever anybody else gets out of it is not really my business. But tell that to my Leo moon. It's been quite a process. At the story of boundaries and heart and being okay with shadows. Yes, Billy, yes. I have the same thing. I'm starting to think my whole purpose for being here is so it can be transmuted. Yes. And let me just like say that from one shadow drawer outer to another, that when people aren't ready to face their shadow and they project it all back onto you, like that's a really hard minute. But like this work, this like Taurus work, especially where we're grounding into ourselves and our own values and our own sense of self-worth, which is completely independent from what anybody else is doing. It's like we understand that, yeah, I mean, I'm basically a mirror, and I show people what they see in my mirror is sometimes like where they're standing in their own way, or where they're being their own worst enemy, or where they're holding themselves back. And most people want to believe that somebody else is holding them back. So when you're asking them to accept that, like, really the power is theirs, accepting that can be hard because they look around at their life and they're like, I don't like my life. How can you tell me that I have power over this? I wouldn't have made this for myself. Well, but you did. And if you would take responsibility for it, you could make something different. And yeah, so like it's possible. And honestly, I forget which one. I think it was in the Gemini North Node chapter where Jan Spiller talked about like basically becoming the embodiment of your truth. So like instead of trying to like tell people things or teach them things, like a lot of times Sagittarius especially can feel like it's your job to tell everybody about themselves and like tell everybody about everything. And it's like, especially when your North Node's in Gemini, it's like listening is what we need to do. And to more relax into our inner security of just becoming the embodiment of what our truth is. So like what that looks like is then to really understand that, yeah, I'm just provoking their shadow. I'm doing my purpose. I'm trusting in my own goodness. These are things that I was telling myself like at the beginning of the week, where like it did rattle me. And I realized the only reason it rattled me was because I was doubting myself. I was doubting that video. I was scared that it was going to offend someone, that my thoughts were going to offend someone. And I was nervous putting it out. And at that point, like when we have fears, life just has to reflect them to us, and it kind of has to play out. And that was my first realization after that happened was, I'm really glad this happened because this was the thing I was most afraid of. And as it happened, it wasn't nearly as bad as I thought it was going to be. It ruffled my feathers a little bit for a minute. I had to like work through it. But again, it was very clarifying because I accepted kind of my soul's responsibility on an even deeper level, that I do have a natural ability to provoke people's shadow. And I take that very seriously. And I do my best to be gentle and to be there with the emotion management pieces. So again, I don't just be like, hold up a mirror, like, yeah, this is your shadow. Okay, sayonara, see you later. Like I want to learn how to help people to heal the shadow, not just pull it up out of them. But the natural ability of pulling it up out of them, that's been going on my whole life, I think. And honestly, that makes a lot of sense because that was kind of how I learned shadow work in the first place, was that I would get some really extreme reactions from people, and it would be devastating to me that they're upset with me. And then in order to make myself feel better, it brought me into my own shadow work. So it's a whole process. And I feel like I'm only just beginning to like really be comfortable in accepting that like sometimes people aren't going to like what I have to say. And that really like the bigger truth, and this is maybe even kind of pouring into that Leo full moon that's coming up, is like, as long as your intentions are good, then there's really nothing to worry about. Like if your heart is in the right place, if you're doing this for the right reasons, then whatever anybody's reaction is to it is, it's just not your business. They're getting what they need out of it. That's between them and the universe, and just call it a day. Leave it at that. Shadow trig. Oh, that's wonderful. Well, and that also reminds me, so a while back, I did a Zoom session called Using Your Natal Chart for Your Shadow Work, or something like that, like finding your shadow in your natal chart. And it was an interactive Zoom. That video is on the channel. And I think I'm going to do a poll, since we have access to the community tab now, since our channel's all grown up, a poll to see how many of you would want to come to like a shadow work Zoom, where that is specifically what we're there to talk about, and do it kind of like the Patreon community style. Do like a pay what feels good donation type thing. And then you get to come and have some conversations one-on-one with people about whatever shadow work patterns or loops, or like what is it that you're facing right now, and let's see if we can wiggle even just a little bit more light into that situation for you. So I was asked by one person to please host another one of those, and yeah, that could be fun. Thank you. Yes, there's the shadow work Zoom recording. I'm a detox, corrections, and psych RN. Wow. I love my patients. Folks aren't usually ready for me either. Neither are my words. For the sensitive, I apologize. The crazies, criminals, and crackheads are my fave. Dude, okay, so this is what I'm talking about with the shadow work stuff. Like there's almost a part of me that feels even more comfortable in the darkness than I do in the light. Like the light is new. The darkness, I mean, I lived there for most of my life up until my later 20s. So like I'm just very comfortable in darkness, but I'm not there now, but I am still comfortable. So that like kind of goes back to that, you know, the full circle part of, to be the wounded healer, first we have to go through our own pain so that later we can, you know, extend the healing and all of that. You guys. Okay. So I am going to put the poll in the community tab to see how many RSVPs we would get. But probably we can look forward to scheduling that at some time. And then Patreon name. So the link, maybe Maddie, do you want to put the link for the Patreon in there again? That is a pay what feels good monthly donation. So make sure you pay attention to that. As far as whatever amount you choose, that is going to automatically recharge on the first of every month. So if you want to quit at any time, no big deal. Just make sure you cancel at least a couple of days before the first of the month so that you don't get charged. I need to freshen up on the Zoom stuff. It's a lot like this. I feel like it's a link and you click it and you're in. The first time you click Zoom, if you haven't had it on your computer for a while, it may have you like download something onto your computer just so Zoom can run. But otherwise, like, yeah, easy peasy. Yeah, cool. Okay, so we'll just say the shadow Zoom's going to happen at some point. And that could even become like a regular occurrence, like as part of the Patreon monthly subscription. We could do the one on the fourth Tuesday that's just kind of open, general questions, whatever, and then do a second one in the month at some point that's more specific to shadow work. So if you're interested in that at all, let me know. Maybe we just do it once and see how it goes and see if we want to make it a recurring thing. So yeah, you guys, this has been awesome. I love these. I tell you what, like they have become my highlight of my week. I look forward to Friday. It feels like a whole time warp of like last Friday feels so far away, so long ago. And then it's like I get off of this and I'm like, oh, I got 7 more days until I can get back on there. I just love seeing you guys here, the chat, and you're hanging out with me, and it's an honor. It really is. Yeah, I think that's all I got for right now. I'm going to get back to working on that North Node series to help everybody see how to make the most of this Taurus North Node transit. I think those are super fun. But yeah, otherwise, you guys like take such good care of yourselves, and so will I. I'll see you next time. Okay, bye.